Payback, huh?
He was a Hemorrhoid for 4 years.
Yeah. Need some preparation age for that.
That's awesome.
Okay, so I wanted to start this class off with a discussion, and I have some questions here for you guys to either answer or think about at least while you're listening to what I'm going about. So, first question is, why is free speech important?
Without it, are we even human?
Are we even human?
Like, do we get, what are our opinions? How different are we from animals?
Yeah, there's a level of consciousness, you know, free will and free speech that's a part of it. Absolutely, it's I'm trying to more focus the discussion on the political aspect of it. So like, in terms of like you becoming a voter one day, right? Like think about like you in 20 years from now, and you are living wherever you are in on your homestead or apartment or whatever, and you feel a certain way about whatever. Don't you want to have the ability to speak it out and you know have a voice in the political machine?
Well, of course.
Yeah, right.
You know, like, it's part of why we have this country.
Yeah.
It's like, without it,
What are we doing?
yeah.
Bunch of apes banging on rocks with sticks and stuff, you know, basically.
Even if people have similar ideas, it's never going to be 100% the same. I feel like freedom of speech is kind of like a big term for like compromise in a sense.
Yeah,
To
yeah.
find out what the happy medium is to make everybody at least like a little like.
Yeah. Hey, Bells, can you?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm blinding you here.
Yeah.
Sorry, buddy.
I don't know your
There
name.
you go. Tessa.
Tessa.
Political censorship stunts the growth of a government as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if there's nobody voicing an opposing opinion, if you're like surround yourself with yes men in a political sense, then nothing's gonna get done if your ideas are the only ones being represented. So everybody needs like a checks and balances system to combat that, like, so nobody has one platform of power, so they're above everybody else, which is essentially what our government is built on.
Yeah.
Is how everybody's equal.
Equal.
In quotes.
Did you sit in that seat right there? Maybe some of that is like, you know,
Rubbed off.
rubbed off. Yeah. Oh, that's good. At least it's, some of you have an idea of what free speech is and why it's important to a functional democracy. I think that's a pretty big part of being an adult, you know, especially in this country or I guess any other, you know. So I would like to move the discussion a little bit more towards, do you guys think that corporations and special interest groups include corporations and unions and things like that? And I know like I'm gonna start using like big words, and it's like people are gonna like start like just like looking out into space, looking at the flag, whatever, you know. Please just kind of hold with me on this. So do corporations and unions and things like that, these special interest groups, should they have the same inalienable rights that you, I, and whoever are guaranteed by the Constitution? Do you guys, like, I know, what's up?
Do we like categorize corporations as their head or as individuals as a whole? Because those individuals have those rights, but their interests in a company should maybe be separated from their rights as a human being and their either greed or interest in a corporation as it grows and as like they gain money from that.
Yeah.
So like, of course those human beings have rights, but then again, when you're talking about a corporation or like a machine, like a company, that company as a company should probably be treated more like a thing and less like a human being.
So you're saying that large corporations on the top level, right, like the CEOs, CFOs, whatever, the people who are making the public decisions and supporting campaigns through contributions or whatever, you're saying that they shouldn't have like, say, like the same protections of like, say, the First Amendment, right? Like,
No, I'm
No.
saying those corporation.
No,
Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like the top level, the machine, right? Like the head of the machine. Like if they were to donate, say, $1 million towards, Ted Cruz's next election, you know what I mean, campaign. Like, do you think that? Because that's there are some no-nos and that you can't have.
Well, there's a difference between like donating to a campaign and bribery. So we have a lot of corrupt politicians, for lack of a better word. But like, if they're giving, so bribery is illegal. You're not allowed to do that. That's because giving money for people to give you more money when they're in office, that's not allowed. Bad. No, don't do that.
Yeah.
0 out of 10. But that person, as a human being, still has a right to support and give their money to whoever they want.
Yeah.
Because it's like the same, even if it wasn't a corporation where they're getting like money back, even if it's like, O'Malley has $1 million. He's like, I really like Donald Trump. Never would happen. I'm gonna give some of my money to him. Like, it's the same with people who have a lot of money and heads of a corporation, but there's a fine line between supporting somebody and bribery.
Yeah.
Well, because you have the face of the company now. You're not acting as an individual. You're acting on part of.
Well, that depends
Like
on how the
a bigger
individual
group.
does it. If it says, hey, I'm Stan and I'm giving money because I have a lot of money, or hey, I'm Stan and I'm giving money because I'm part of this corporation.
That has a lot of money. Exactly.
But isn't it like if you give money from yourself and you taking money from your company, isn't that like two
Different.
things?
Yes,
Yes.
that's my
Yes.
Yeah.
point.
You guys were going, and you guys gone now? Like I felt,
Yeah.
I felt like I was like, oh yeah, I don't even have to teach anymore. You guys are like good. Yeah, and the points that you're making are absolutely true. There's bribery, and then there's political contribution, which sometimes can get blurred in the grand scheme of things, right? And there are. I'll get to you. Hold on. We have two in politics. There's two types of money contributions. There's soft money, right, which is the like, say I supported the Democratic Democratic Party, right, and I wanted at least one of their candidates to at least make it to the presidential campaign or the presidential election, and to have them. Oh man, sorry, I lost my step there.
Contributions.
Yeah. So the soft money contributions, they're like, if I was gonna support a party, right, I would donate X amount of dollars towards the Democratic Party, and that could just be whitewash or what's a better word for talking talking smack? What's a better word for that?
Maui?
But bashing would be a better word, right? So as long as I didn't support a candidate directly, right? Like I didn't donate $1 million to Hillary Clinton specifically, right? Like that would be a hard money contribution. So like spending mass amounts of money on political campaigns within it, and it has to be within a certain amount of time of the election, which is like a part of, like, is a stipulation of the court case we're about to talk about. So and there are other court cases that span back to the early 1990s or early 1900s that have to do with campaign contributions and finance reform. So I gotta just refer to my notes. I'm a little out there. So
7 a.m. across the board, dude.
yeah, there you go. At least someone understands.
It's 7:10. Come on.
So, who is Citizens United, right? They're a non-for-profit organization that made a movie called Hillary the Movie, which was a very and we gotta go back to like 2008 when if you can remember with Barack Obama's presidency, right, before he became in office, there was a race between him and Hillary Clinton for the Democratic primary, for one of them to run as the Democratic candidate, right? Citizens United made a film about Hillary Clinton that was very critical of her and spent over $1 million doing so, which was a soft money contribution that was held to be unconstitutional at the time due to a previous legislation that was put forward by Feinstein and McCain. I think it was the McCain and Feinstein Act, right? And I think it was, actually I have the number written, provision 44 or 441B said that you could not donate over a certain amount of money towards a political campaign with soft money contributions. And then there were hard money restrictions, or actually in that case, hard money restrictions were increased. So like you could increase the amount of money that hard money contributions were. Again, there's stipulation and there's like crazy legal words and like, I don't know if you've ever listened to a Supreme Court case as it's happening. Like you can just look it up and it's like an audio file that you can just listen to. Like any Supreme Court case within the last, what is it, like 30-something years, you can just access. But when you listen to them, they're all old people and they all speak legalese and they're battering back and forth. And imagine, all right, imagine sitting in this classroom for the next 60 years and that you're stuck with each other. Or at least 7 of you are stuck with each other, but there's 9 of them. 9 of you are stuck together for the next 60 years. Like, can you imagine the arguments that would happen, right?
I feel like that every day.
Yeah.
We already argue.
Yeah. And you guys can't even the last 2 years doing it, you know? Like, right?
So when that happens, like when they get caught,
Yeah.
like what exactly, how do they get sentenced and,
Like, do they have to give the money back? Like, how does it work?
Okay,
Do they
so-
pay Hillary? Like,
In the specific case of Citizens United versus the FEC, because it was a movie, right? And it wasn't like an actual like here's $1 million for your campaign, right? The way that it was prosecuted was that I don't know like the exact like I'm sure there's not government agents that just come up to you and they're like, hey, you made a movie, like you're going to jail. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't really happen like that. But it so in that sense I can't answer that question. But I can say that the contributions that they made were way too much in terms of the amount of money. So when the first court hearing happened on this case against from Citizens United versus the FEC, it was at a local level, right? Like there's a state level, there's a local, state, and then federal level. And I believe it happened at the state level first, and then it jumped right up to the Supreme Court because it was such a controversial issue. And you know, we're talking like millions and millions of dollars here. You know, it's not like chump change. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you as an individual, you can only donate a certain amount of money, like I said, as a soft contribution. I believe the number was what they discussed in the court case itself. Like when I was listening to it, they said that it was I believe it was $2,400 that an individual could donate towards a political campaign. Which, you know, because $2,500 would be just way too much, you know what I mean? Like, but that was what one of the Supreme Justices said during the court case. So if I answered your question at all, it happens at one level of the government, right? There's the local, state, and Supreme Court, and that's how any Supreme Court case happens. It just moves up the ranks until it reaches someone to the most superior people, the people who interpret the Constitution and the law and the constitutionality of certain things that happen in the United States. I know you were raising your hand for a while.
Yeah, is there?
You know.
Well, what I want to talk about earlier is a little off topic now. But with the money, because you're talking about the limited amount of contribution, like per individual. Is it like individual percent? Like it doesn't matter, like if it's like someone who's representing a company or someone who is that. Like,
But
does it matter really, or is it just like per company can only donate 2,500?
so they mention it in the discussion on during the court case that it doesn't matter if they make the regulation that like you as the individual, like the company, right, couldn't make a contribution, but you could pay your employees to vote for you in the local or contribute in the same way if you had like enough people, right? If you had say a company of 300 people, you have.
Oh my god!
Oh.
my god!
That's so sad.
Bird just flew into the window.
And then the feathers just went.
No! I saw that. That was so sad.
Yeah, that was really sad. Anyways, besides that bird, you know. So like what you were saying is that political opinions can be manipulated, just like at the politician level. It can be done the same way at the voter level. You know, that corporations could make your employees, if they gave them enough money or had. I mean, there's definitely rules and regulations against things like this, but they could say fire them for not voting in whatever way. Excuse me, sorry. So hopefully that answered your question, right?
Because you mentioned something about like the limit of like the $2,500.
Yeah.
So how does that play into it?
There's probably just some math behind it.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying
It's
like
not-
because you're relaying that back to the video movie thing. I'm
Which
assuming
was
about Hillary.
Hillary Clinton and Citizens United, whatever, and
Yeah.
so it was a huge contribution, and it was not directly funding, right? It was not directly funding,
It
which
was just like a
$2,400 is a hard money contribution. I feel like I didn't specify that, but that's a hard money contribution, where this is a soft money contribution.
So that was less than the 2,500.
Yeah,
It's different.
yeah, it's different because it's not going to a direct political candidate, but it's going to just the general Democratic, or well, I guess it was for the Republican Party, right? Or,
Yeah.
Or Obama.
Or Obama, whatever it was, yeah.
Just anybody against Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, I feel personally against, but
I'm a little confused. So
Yeah.
the court case we're talking about is this specific one about
Citizens United versus the Federal Elections Commission.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
So the Federal Election Commission was established.
You get to the ruling.
Oh, yeah.
You keep us in suspense.
All right. So the FCC was created in the 1970s after the FECA Act, which was, or well, I guess it's a federal Electoral Communications Act, which established the FEC to just regulate these kind of contributions and money and whatever. Anyways, to move forward, right? The court's decision was to uphold Citizens United's claim that it was unconstitutional that the McCain and Feinstein Act that had in 2002 had said that they couldn't make a certain contribution, that it was a direct infringement on First Amendment rights for corporations. And the Supreme Court's decision was 4-5 on this. So this was like, heated conversation, debate, whatever, This is like, the final vote really mattered on this decision. And corporations are not the only type of special interest group that exists. Like I said before, unions are also a part of this thing. So, and then there are corporations that aren't multimillionaires or multi-billion-dollar operations. There's just a certain amount of them. But it's the fact that the just because the 1%, right? It's because it's only 1%, right? It's a part of that population, but all the money is coming from that 1%. So we're really when we're talking about like the I guess the fact that it's not right, you know what I mean? Like the constitutionality of it. We're talking about that 1%, the big money coming in from politics, and that's really is shaping the landscape of our, like, you know, with the pharmaceutical companies or the oil companies or whatever it be, you know? These are the corporations that the left, because on the left side of the argument, right, is that Citizens United was a failure in terms of creating a better democracy. And then the Republicans, or the right, you know, wherever people lie, whatever, that's, you know, all good. The right says that it's not, that every corporation, just like every union, should have free speech, First Amendment rights. But the older woman on the Supreme Court, I forget her name, Ginsburg, she had made the point that that foreign interests, right, that there are foreign stockholders in companies, and there are foreign people who own companies in the United States. If they were have, say, the same freedoms and liberties that we as Americans enjoy, where is that line? Do they still have the same types of freedom that we do? Should they? Is that okay? You know, at this point I'm asking you guys. Yeah, how do you guys feel about?
Well, okay, you're.
So, how do you guys feel about foreign interests, right? Foreign participants in corporations, then now having a voice because of Citizens United's case?
So, I think that if we're going based off the Constitution, every man is created equal, you know, and that every person, whether or not they have a democratic government, should have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that they're not here to, like, receive the repercussions of any of their choices,
Yeah.
you know? And so, not that they're less people than us, meaning like they're lower than us,
Yeah.
but there needs to be more limitations on what the power that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's a very agreeable statement. Well,
I essentially agree with her. I think foreign powers don't have any part being in our government, especially because foreign, big word right there.
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
not American. They're not
Yeah.
part of our like society. They're not part of our like box.
Yeah.
So again, what she said, they're not here to reap the repercussions of decisions they make, and they're making these decisions with money instead of and influence instead of practicality. So it's because they're so far removed from the American government, nothing that they do is for their own well-being as a person. It's for their well-being as a corporation, which
Yeah.
is that's money. That's not a human being.
Absolutely. That's a point that many people argue when talking about Citizens United and the Supreme Court's decision. I don't know your name. What's your name? Maui?
John, you can call me John.
All right, John.
So I agree with them, but at the same time, I think foreign, like, their opinion could matter, and it really could be beneficial. You understand? Like, it's not, they can't suffer the repercussions, but we can get something out of it. It could be beneficial.
Can I talk to you? Can I
Yes.
respond? Okay, cool. So yes,
See, like,
yes,
that's
their opinion. Of course, everybody's opinion matters, but most of the people who have influence and have influence in like these are the
Their
people we're
influence
talking.
was bought.
Yeah, we're talking about money. We're talking about the people who have money and are willing to give it to United States politicians. They don't care about our best interests. They care about money and they care about monetary gain. They don't. Yes, people in Europe and Asia and people over there probably have good ideas and ways to better our country as a whole, but those are not the people we're talking about. We're talking about people who have money and want to use it to have interest in our government.
She makes an excellent point.
What does
And
monetary gain mean?
Like money
Money.
gain.
Oh.
yeah, I totally agree with you, and I just want to make the point though that in defense of your case, that foreign companies do earn, and even companies that have just stockholders or shareholders that are foreign, right? they contribute mass amounts of tax revenue towards the United States, and the way that they do business in the United States is in their interest, right? And I totally get the point that there are corporations that do awful things and it's all for profit and whatever, but they are a part of our system. So there is a degree of responsibility that we have to uphold to them, right? And I appreciate you voicing your opinion, because that can be very unpopular, you know what I mean?
Yeah, their exports and their imports are very beneficial to us, but the country that they live in, their country, where they have rights and they reside, that should be where their human rights come into play.
Absolutely.
Not in our country, where we have to focus on our people. And they have, because we have an open trade route and it's beneficial for us, they have a hold in the American society.
Yeah,
Because of the goings, that they shouldn't have a hold in our political system.
absolutely.
Yeah, again, that brings up the other argument that we were talking about, I think a couple weeks ago, about how much business should influence our government.
Yeah,
Like, do you want these big corporations to be deciding how much say we get in our government? Do you want these big corporations to be the ones who say, yes, you can, no, you can't, when they're not the ones who have to deal with the outcome?
it's true, absolutely.
That kind of brings back to what I wanted to kind of bring up earlier, in the sense that, when it comes to people, like, whether they're just saying, let's make a contribution, let's donate to this because I agree with it, or like my company, quotation marks, agrees with it.
Yeah.
Does that kind of line up with like sponsors, in a sense, that like, once someone like sponsors a company or like a business, it's kind of like they're all one unit, and they kind of like,
All have the same interest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
even if like, let's say the company wants to do something different, if their sponsors are like, no, they really have a risk there with saying that.
Yeah, it's all controversial. And it's really comes down to just who has the money, who's making the contributions themselves. And as much as I'd like to keep running on about this, and I wish I had more time and whatever. The bell is literally about to ring in a minute. I guess this would be the time to wrap up my presentation.
absolutely.
I'm sorry that I didn't space this out enough to have enough conversation and whatever and all that.
It's part of the
But
process.
yeah,
Sorry, it's because we talk too much.
and that's okay. That's okay. But I just want to make one. I guess I want to make an ovation because I wrote something that means a lot to me. And again, I wish I could continue the conversation about the.
Oh, go, go.
All right. I'm sure that over the course of this class, you've learned
Will
about.
Brian Fox please report to Mr. Piazza's office? Brian Fox to
Proof that
Mr.
you're in
Piazza's
school.
office.
Yeah,
please.
yeah. The course of this class, you've learned about great men, great people who have altered the course of history towards greater tomorrows. Individuals who conquered distant lands, who established law, who invented tools and machines. However, there are those who are glanced over in the pages of history. Those who have never stepped foot on battlefields or uncharted lands, the ones who work indirectly in making the world a better place. The few who changed so many lives. Bells, you changed my life. I wouldn't have made it this far without you. I literally would not be standing here without you. You were there for me and my sister when we lost our house. You were there when I needed you, whether it was for school or a friend. You stuck your neck out for me time and time again. You believing in me made me believe in myself. And when the going gets tough with school and work, I think about wanting to prove to you that I made it. And you know, you're like my fucking idol, man. Seriously. Like,
You'll have to edit that part out.
yeah. But seriously, you guys have an amazing opportunity here. And me being out there at the next level, I hope can be a motivation towards you guys to get to the next level. You know, I didn't learn all this stuff in school and whatever, and I know we only covered a little topic here, but you guys have a great resource here. Not just bellows, but flea and track and track. Right? Yeah.
In one way or another.
She hasn't been taken out in the handcuffs yet. You know, they're awesome people, and they, just like they stuck their necks out for me and my family and my peers, I'm sure they would do the same for you guys. And I hope that you guys can recognize that. So, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, Roger. Brandon. Yeah, push it.